Go.
Different. It's just instead of, blink the light, look at what's going on in the camera and see what the gesture pose is. Are you punching? Yes or no? That's it.
That's amazing. Like, my favorite game on Kinect was the Kinect Sports when you had the boxing. And back when there used to be a tour in Canada, the Tech Days tour, we actually used to do the championships. I actually still have the belt that we were giving away. They had to try to beat me at the championship for Kinect Sports. So that's awesome that you actually converted it to Mike Tyson boxing. What projects have you been on as of late in terms of IoT?
So the new real cool thing is we see a lot of bridging of artificial intelligence and Internet of Things, which is this new paradigm. In fact, some folks call it AIoT, but that is the whole taking things like, you see object detection and video streams and things like that. And like, how do you put that into, say, an IoT application? So now, I guess the light that you would maybe be turning on or the action you would be taking from your Insight is now produced by something that the sensor, is actually something that can see in the real world and things like that. And it's not limited to that. We see a lot of things too with using machine learning on audio inputs and things like that, where you can tell, maybe who is speaking or what type of instrument is being played and things like that. So a lot of that, where you're sort of bridging the gap between the AI world and the embedded / IoT world to create these kind of standalone solutions that use artificial intelligence in clever ways.
And it's awesome that you're actually building out content with the team right now for future events and sharing the knowledge that you have and the experiments that you've done so others can repeat, which is really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a lot of fun. And I think that's the big thing is when we do share out projects, which, we did just do a whole bunch for July OT. That's the month July with OT at the end of it, .com. If you head there, you'll see a lot of the types of projects that we created there. And those cover a wide gamut of things, but makes us really excited when we see people pick up some of the projects that we build and, take them, turn them into something of their own that might solve something we never thought it could do in the first place. Very fun to see that.
So let's get started with the news. We've got a lot to cover today, especially on the IoT side. But first, some hot news that's been all over the social medias. The whole aspect of the announcement that the Microsoft 365 applications will sunset IE11 support. So Teams will sunset support this November, and the functionality for the rest of the Microsoft 365 apps will retire the support next year. Windows 10 will also sunset IE11 support. That's coming up in March of 2021. What does that mean for those that are using IE11 in their day-to-day activities? For Microsoft 365 apps, There will no longer be support for IE11 at all. In respect to those users that are on Windows 10, what you will see is there is already a compatibility mode that will actually emulate IE11 as a tab inside of the Edge browser, which allows you then to then take advantage of the MS HTML functionality made available in IE11. This can actually be set up as a policy by administrators to enforce the fact that if it's a site that specifically requires IE11 support, to automatically create that tab to have the emulation of IE11 to support said application or said website that could be internal in some cases. Paul, you had made mention that there was some interest in this as well in terms of the functionality for IE11 going away.
Yeah, I mean, some of the devices I've got around my house, I know they have configuration panels, let's just say that only work with ActiveX controls.
Right.
And that makes me nervous sometimes, you know, like, what happens if I can't run ActiveX? You know, what do I do?
I'm intrigued to see what happens to all my Windows phones and my Windows mobile devices to see if they actually will continue working. The browser itself will work, but there will no longer be critical updates or security updates being pushed out to the browser, and then support from the Microsoft 365 app side will stop working as well. So pretty cool. Next up, Paul, you've got a plethora of IoT announcements that's been made available.
Yes, so there was quite a few things that have recently popped out for our favorite, the Iot Central Software as a Service application. If you haven't seen this thing before, here's just a quick kind of overview. Iot Central is essentially the in-a-box solution that allows you to do dashboarding and that sort of thing for an all-in-one sort of mission control, if you will, for IoT applications. But it goes beyond that. There's, in addition to a number of these tiles and support for different things that can graph, there's a bunch of cool things you can do, like set jobs up, create rules, create templates for devices for easy onboarding and things like that. And one of the really cool things too that I've noticed recently is that a bunch of the tooling has now been updated to sort of support some of these features. Now, the Iot Central team has made a recent post here. This was posted just a couple days ago on new updates, and some of these pertain to the UI, and some pertain to some new tooling, particularly around the CLI interface. So if you're already familiar with, say, the Azure CLI tool, one of the really cool things here is that the extension now supports Iot Central, and this gives you a whole number of commands that you can sort of see here for doing things like being able to create, say, tokens for authentication against the service. If you want to be able to view devices or be able to view how to connect to those devices. The one that I really like here that's super duper useful is this validate messages option that you can employ here. And this is really great because it can allow you to look at the messages your devices are sending to Iot Central. And if you've ever written like a plug and play template before, this is a nice way to verify that the data that's actually coming off of your devices conforms to that PNP template, because ultimately to get all this cool rendering and stuff that you see here, those things have to be sort of one-to-one. One of the other really interesting things here that has popped out is, solution builders love the stuff that we usually give away around, being able to fast track and create proof of concepts very fast. There's a new one now that's created for, it's a mobile app gateway sample that's designed for use in medical scenarios. So you can think for like telemedicine and that sort of thing. So this is the continuous patient monitoring scenario. And this is a full solution in a box, essentially, that you can kind of pull down here that brings together a connected mobile app that also pushes its reporting into one of those Iot Central dashboards. And so this is built on a number of different technologies here that make this all work under the hood. But the really cool thing here that you can see is the use case that this can maybe bring for, say, telemedicine types of scenarios, or even just in this modern world where we've got a lot of issues right now with people getting sick from COVID-19 and things like that. This is something that we're hoping we can employ out in the field to maybe help assist patients as well as care providers for giving the best kind of care that you could provide in a remote fashion. And what's really nice is having that all being linked back up to Iot Central. Now, that's not all. There's also another announcement that was also made a couple days ago, and this is regarding a new IoT Central App Template. And this one is specifically for video analytics. Now, what's really interesting about this is it utilizes the OpenVINO model server. This is an offering from Intel that allows you to perform live video analytics at the edge, essentially. So that's a completely separate project. It's called LVA for short, Live Video Analytics, that this is built on top of, or I should say works in conjunction with. And any of the telemetry that you would be getting from that LVA instance end up getting visualized within the IoT Central user interface. And what's nice is you've got a nice template here that you can deploy and just go right to the races with. Now, what this looks like, I found this interesting. They do sort of link off to the IoT Central documentation, but if you scroll down here, you'll see there's a number of different templates here. And the link to the Create Video Analytics application can be found under the retail section. But I do want to kind of pause and take note here that whether you're building solutions for retail, healthcare, energy, or government, there's a solution in a box essentially that you can deploy out and get one of these nice looking templates for your line of business, depending on the vertical that you're currently catering to. And this will link off to the full tutorial that lives on Docs today that allows you to create that video analytics solution. And so this employs a couple of different techniques. It uses both a motion detection and an object detection service to be able to look at feeds that are coming through. And in the scenario that they've sort of painted for you in this retail in a box thing is to look at interesting things that might be coming through the retail security feeds and being able to detect objects, for example, things like inventory and things like that. And you'll see here, just going through kind of a quick overview of what this deployment would look like. It does require that you configure Azure Media Services, and that is to satisfy the LVA component of this application. So again, remember those work in conjunction with each other. Once you've got that set up, you sort of set it up to behave essentially as an IoT Edge device and apply a device template through IoT Central. Once you've stood that up and applied the template, you'll start getting all of that data flowing into that user interface where, if you've ever played with IoT Central before, the customization then becomes almost as easy as dragging and dropping components or clicking in the live editor to get it to sort of conform to the dashboard and look and feel that you might be going with. And finally, just to kind of bridge those pieces a little bit more so it's a little more clear what's going on here. That live video analytics solution that runs on top of Azure Media Services, that also has its own announcement. But just understanding how this works, it can be deployed in edge environments to be able to capture any sort of data that's coming off of live video feeds, where it can then produce inferencing or insights from those inference results that can then flow up into your line of business application, or in this case, an IoT Central service. So this is something really cool. It can handle multiple video feeds, again, built on top of Azure Media Services. So it's got all the capabilities and scalability that you would expect from there. And just a really quick way to go into one of those, if you're looking at doing live video analytics and you want to do an intelligent video analytics pipeline, this is a great offering that can get you there, both from that device level at the edge, and then being able to get all that data pumped back up into, say, a lovely dashboard in IoT Central.
I wasn't joking when I said there was a plethora of updates available for IoT, and awesome, Paul, that you're here to run through them all to do it justice. A couple of questions that I have in regards to a couple of the points that you made mention of. The Azure CLI support or extended support for IoT Central. What a great way in terms of enforcing governance or even plotting automation of support of the tools. Could you go a little bit more in depth in regards to, from a perspective of control, the availability that CLI would then provide to the IoT offering?
Sure. So just to reiterate on what the available features are here, I mean, you could, just as you were sort of alluding to there, you could literally automate pretty much anything that you need. And where this gets me excited is a lot of times we want to run, events. We used to do that in person, and it gets kind of difficult when you've got a lot of manual tasks going on, for example, to dress up a IoT Central instance. What's nice here is that you can utilize these features and sort of string them together, both with the authentication piece, the device registration piece, even being able to go ahead and script the creation of templates in such a fashion that this could potentially unlock the ability to facilitate virtual workshops and that sort of thing, where a user could just very easily execute a script and be then at a one-to-one with perhaps what the proctor is trying to show in that case. And just, again, as a developer, what really excites me about this is just a lot of the debugging tools that become available to you here that allow you to sort of look inside the black box of like what's happening from when my data goes from device to IoT Central. Well, that's no longer a mystery. You can actually see, by validating messages and things like that, or even using the monitor events is another interesting one to be able to look like what's happening in that IoT Hub instance that is, in fact, the backing piece for IoT Central. What's actually going on there, and being able to react to it and develop your application more thoroughly around what the reality is of the data flowing through.
And from an administrator perspective, the ability to validate, the traffic and the messages that are coming through, and to implement governance in terms of just-in-time configuration to access to said data from the CLI command prompt is such a much easier than going through all the hops that you would have to go through on the GUI to enable the same thing. So it's a huge advantage on both roles in terms of the management of the IoT offering. I had another question in regards to the video template functionality. Is it a true plug and play? Is there a requirement to hard code or connect to a requirement of a specific device? Or how does that play in terms of rolling out the devices to harness the solution?
A solution. Yeah, sorry about that. The LVA solution, the only kind of hardbound instance there is that it does run on a Linux x86, x64 environment. That's just where it needs to live. But the cameras or devices that you connect to, it's as long as it's got a network connection or a capability to connect to those streams using ONVIF or RTSP, you get immediate access to those. And it shouldn't be a surprise that what you're going to see most of these deployments look like. Of course, it can live down at the edge if needed, but these are things that can also live in a cloud deployment, with that need for the x86 environment that it has to live on. So it's one of those things that, yes, you can spin it up. You don't really need to necessarily know what's working on, what it's running on underneath the hood. But from there, it just becomes a process of configuring it to give you access to the inputs and sources that you need. And of course, configuring it to apply the object detection models and configure the motion detection options that you would be interested in for your solution.
Now, what's awesome, if we flip to the chat room, there's a lot of chatter that are talking about the video solution right now. They've actually, Richard Hooper has actually done a video session with it already, which is awesome. You're starting to see the conversation of the simplicity of utilizing this solution as a plug and play to start testing, which is the whole purpose, the reason why this is being created in such a way as a template. So it's a much quicker proof of concept as opposed to waiting months to develop something just to test out to see its functionality. You can have instant gratification that the solution works. Here's it detecting objects. Obviously, there's more work beyond that. But in the fact that it's simplistic in terms of its upstart and it's proving out of the scenario, huge advantage in terms of the solution.
Yeah, and it's a real testament to, I think, the mission behind IoT Central. I mean, it is in one way of looking at it, it's like it is the core example of what plug and play would look like in a perfect environment, because all of the components that you see, the visualization aspects, those all work because there is a PnP template behind the scenes that makes those things just work with those components. And when you start to marry that up with these out-of-box solutions like LVA that can automatically speak to IoT Central or already have a device template that's configured to automatically push that telemetry into those user interface components, that's just like you said, it gives you that sort of out-of-box experience that can get you to very, very fast prototyping, where at this point now it's like, what's the hardest part of building the, a video analytics solution? I don't know, wiring up the cameras. It's really cool how it simplifies all of that for you and just gets you to POC in seconds flat almost.
Yep, correct. It's awesome. So let's continue on with the news. Next up, our good friend Alex has shared a new item in terms of Azure AD functionality, the ability now to assign Azure AD roles to on-premises groups, as well as Azure AD custom roles. This was the most asked for, most requested feature through the feedback forums. And remember, do share your feedback with us at any time because you help shape the services that Microsoft is to offer on Azure and other platforms. So this was one of the most asked for features, most requested features. It is currently in public preview. It hasn't GA'd yet, so definitely your feedback is needed. And there's a full-on step-by-step provided by Alex in terms of how to enable this. What's awesome about this is in a hybrid scenario, the ability to push out the group assignment, a role assignment to the group on premises for your hybrid implementations. Huge, huge, huge. This is something that like I said, a lot of organizations have been asking for. Make sure you test it out. It is not in production yet, so don't put this into production. This is completely public preview, but definitely looking for your input in terms of, is this what everybody's been asking for? Is there something else that we're missing? Let Alex and the team know right through the site itself. And all the information that we're sharing here, as always, is shared on itopsoc.com, which is always our latest post on Friday, to allow you to go and provide that feedback there or directly to Alex in terms of your uptake or what you'd like to see added to this functionality. Let's continue on with the news. So next up are our events for the week. It is Friday. It is the fortnight Friday of the month, and that means there will be another episode of Patch and Switch. I actually see regular IT guy lurking around in the chat section. He and Joey Snow will be on the air in about an hour and a half to do their Patch and Switch show, which goes live on Twitch every fortnight Friday in the month. Next up, Microsoft Ignite. If you haven't registered yet, make sure you do. That is coming up on September 22nd to 24th. It is going to be in all digital format. You will see the likes of Paul and myself and producer Pierre and others that will be on Microsoft Ignite. Make sure you come by and say hello. There's going to be a lot of interactive sessions for the availability to have chats back to back, not one-on-one, but more so one-to-many with a lot of us on Ignite. So make sure you do sign up and have that availability to have the opportunity to connect with us and have your IoT questions ready for Paul DiCarlo, because he'll be there making sure that he can answer all the questions that you have and also learn from you in regards to what you're trying to accomplish in your day-to-day activities. Last but not least, because this is a very heavy IoT show, which I'm very happy about, which is really cool, coming up on September 7th and 10th is the IoT Innovatech digital conference. This originally was to be taking place in Chile back in July. Unfortunately, due to the human malware that's going on right now, it's been pushed off to September, and it is now an all digital show. And what I love about this was, previous to, you would actually have to go to Chile to actually partake in this conference. Now you have the availability to actually attend online, which allows you, connectivity around the world to come on and participate. This is going to be definitely an IoT-heavy conference. A couple of us will be speaking at the this conference as well. So come on, say hi, share your knowledge with the world. Even though it's hosted by LATAM, doesn't mean that you can participate in the fact that it's all digital. At any point, you can jump on in and have that conversation with all of us. Last but not least, it is the Microsoft Learn module of the week. And Paul, I'm going to let you take this one away.
Sure, absolutely. So yeah, this is the Develop IoT Solutions with Azure IoT Central Learning Path, which I just thought would be a really good suggestion, being that we've got all these announcements around IoT Central. And, a lot of folks, they just haven't taken this thing for a spin. And I know I've mentioned a lot of words here like plug and play and things like that. And those might be new for some folks. And maybe you want to know what that really means. And I'll tell you, the best way to learn is through the interactive Learn modules that are available on Microsoft Learn. And what's really nice about this, you can sort of scroll through this one, Anthony. It's got a few things here. It starts with just giving you the, how to go from creating your very first application to, you might have saw very quickly during my demo that there's an ability to set up rules, and it's very easy. That can allow you to then take action on that telemetry. It'll also show you how you can interact behind the scenes to do some automated tasks through the REST API that's exposed there. And finally, showing you how to go all the way from IoT Central App to exporting that data into additional services. You might be wondering, well, can't I already visualize it in the IoT Central instance? Sure, but you can also make use of that data in other ways that might be important to additional stakeholders or teams by being able to forward that out to Power BI. So it's a great walkthrough on all of kind of the steps that you would need to go for essentially an end-to-end solution, building your very first one within those services. And the great thing here too is just like any of the other Microsoft Learn modules that are available, all the services to employ this are free. In fact, even Iot Central will let you spin up that first application for a select number of devices without any cost being incurred. So you can go ahead and take this for a spin. It's a really cool thing to have, and a great thing to show customers, partners, or any other folks that might be interested in taking advantage of visualizing their IoT data in a cool software as a service front end.
And what I love about this is like you said, it is start to finish. You start by building out your IoT solution, and you finish with exporting the data into meaningful data in a visual report, similar to the demo that you showed earlier in terms of the Contoso market solution. And it's all there, and it's all free. So if you're starting to dabble in IoT and you're starting to trying to gain a handle on the functionality made available, awesome module, awesome learning path to take advantage of. So that brings us to the end of the show. Paul, I can't express enough how privileged we are to have you on the show. Your depth and knowledge on IoT surpasses anybody that we've had on the show thus far, which unfortunately hasn't been a lot of people. But it's a great thing to have you on the show. Pierre is screaming in my ears, just you just talk about IoT, nobody else. No, but it's awesome the fact that we have someone like you on the show to share the passion of IoT for the masses. Even though the audience here is traditionally system administrator, there are some developers that also join the show as well. It is important for everybody to dabble and everybody to play, just from the perspective of understanding what everybody's doing and understanding what their role is when deploying solutions like IoT. So, Paul, if people want to get a hold of you on the socials, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Easiest way, if you hit me up on Twitter at PJDiCarlo, I will respond for sure, either in public or DMs, whichever way. Also pretty active on LinkedIn these days. You can find me, Paul DiCarlo, on the LinkedIn channels. So yeah, feel free to look me up on either of those. I'd love to hear about any of the cool stuff you're having. And if you have, if you need help with things, feel free to ask questions, throw those over my way. I'm always happy to help.
And if you want to reach out to producer Pierre, you can always get him on the Twitters at Wired Canuck. And if you want to get a hold of me, you can get me on the Twitters at Wireless Life. Paul, thank you again for joining us on the show today. Everybody, have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.